So, as those of you who watch my shorts feed are aware, I recently took a trip and got married on that trip. And judging by the numbers and the interaction of the shorts feeds, this is apparently of great interest. So, it was a very good trip. We got married in Vegas and then we went on a cruise to Hawaii and Mexico. So, I figured, given the interaction of the shorts, I would give you the full extended version of a video about that trip. So here is our wedding, and there's not much of the wedding in this video, to be fair, but here is at least the honeymoon trip of our cruise on the Grand Princess around Hawaii and Mexico. So as I mentioned, the whole purpose of this trip was to get married. So I figured just right up front, I would show you the wedding pictures, or at least some of them. We got married at the Little Chapel of Hearts in Las Vegas. And yeah, it was great. It was good fun. Vegas itself was amazing. It was huge. Like, the scale of everything is huge. And I know everybody says that, kind of telling you about Vegas, but until you actually see Vegas, I don't think you understand how big everything is. But it was an experience. It was brilliant. Whilst we were there, because we were only there a few days, and obviously one of them was spent getting married, we decided to go and see the Sphere, see a show there. It was brilliant. There was a slightly lifelike and a little bit spooky looking robot, which unnerved my husband slightly. But the show we saw was Postcards from Earth, and like, I absolutely recommend it. It was brilliant. So yeah, 10 out of 10 if you're in Las Vegas, go to the Sphere. After we'd had a few days in Vegas, it was then time to head for the cruise. So we had to jump on a short flight to LA. We stayed overnight in LA because the boarding was very early the next morning. It was a little bit chaotic. I think there were some elevators or escalators that weren't working in the terminal. So getting everybody who'd just arrived back from the last cruise off the ship in order for us to get on. There was a couple of very small delays, but it wasn't anything horrendous. It was fine. We got chatting to people waiting to go in. Everyone was in good spirits. So yeah, we got on without too many issues. Once we arrived, we found a seat in one of the bars. I think it was Crooners we went to, grabbed some drinks and waited to be able to get access to our cabin. When we did, we were on the port side of the ship, but we weren't on the port side for sail away, but still got some great views of the harbour sailing out. So yeah, the cruise ship we were on was the Grand Princess, which is an older ship. I think it's actually the oldest one in the Princess fleet, but it was, it didn't look tired. It didn't look worn out. It was actually, if you say to people, imagine what a cruise ship looks like, you would imagine the Grand Princess. We were in a standard balcony cabin. I really like having the balconies. They are kind of an added expense. If you're looking at going on a cruise, it is more expensive to be in a balcony. But for this trip in particular, it was worth its weight in gold because of some of the wildlife that we got to see throughout the trip, which you will see more of coming up, because I was out on that balcony with my camera in hand a lot of the time. One of the other places we spent a lot of time on the ship was in the theatre. Now, there were some really good kind of entertainment shows in there. We went to see a couple of them, but the reason I was in there a lot of the time was because of the enrichment talks. They had some cultural ambassadors on board from Hawaii who told you a lot about the islands before you got there, so you had that extra bit of knowledge. And also there was a lady on board who was giving talks on wildlife and like the ecological impacts of wildlife and just all of the things to do with the wildlife and the natural geology of Hawaii, and they were incredibly entertaining and very good. So I spent a lot of time in the theatre. On our way to Oahu, the first island we were stopping at, we encountered a rather large thunder and lightning storm, which was amazing to watch from the balcony. We ordered some drinks via room service, and I sat out there drinking tea and watching a thunder and lightning storm. Um, when we arrived at Oahu, we had booked a trip. Now, we didn't book this through the ship. We did book trips through the ship later on, but this one I booked through an independent company, and I would 100% recommend it. It was more cost effective than the ones through the ship. The tour guide, Robert, who drove us around everywhere, was incredibly knowledgeable. And because we were visiting Pearl Harbor, we were visiting the Arizona Memorial, it's somewhere he couldn't take us around because it is a memorial. They don't allow tour guides to just wander through. So what he did is he took us, and then he gave us kind of like an itinerary to follow to make sure we got to see the best of everything and we didn't miss anything. It was an incredibly moving thing to do. Like, it's not your general light-hearted holiday activity, but my husband absolutely loves military history, so it was very important for him to take the opportunity to visit. And yeah, you know, when we were there, you could still see kind of like the oil coming up to the surface of the water, and it was kind of, in some ways, it was like it was still sinking. It was just, yeah, it was certainly an experience I'm glad we did, even though it wasn't, you know, your usual fun time, light-hearted vacation activities. Once we'd been to the memorial, we then went for a trip around the US Missouri. Again, a very important historical ship. Also, we learned where the film Battleship was filmed. And we know this because the man who took us on a tour of the ship itself had a small role in it, and asked us to all go and watch the film for his SAG payments. So go watch that film, I guess, for the sake of our tour guide, who was very lovely. But yeah, again, really worth going to see, part of the trip that we booked, and would absolutely recommend taking the opportunity to go and visit, even if it's not, you know, your usual fun time vacation activity. It was certainly something that I'm glad we did, and we got to go and experience. The second island, which I am going to mispronounce because I always do, was Kauai. I apologize to any people who are from Hawaii for my pronunciations of these name places, by the way. On this island, we decided to hire a car, and the reason was there was quite a few like natural sites and viewpoints that we wanted to visit, and we figured hiring a car was going to be the easiest way to do it. So that's what we did. We got a free upgrade to the biggest truck I've ever seen in my life. My husband was very excited about this. He was very happy. The first place we went, was on a river cruise to see Fern Grotto. This was absolutely outstanding. Like, this, I think, was my favorite island, my favorite destination of the whole trip. It was beautiful. The company who ran the riverboat tours and the tours into Fern Grotto, it was a family business, and they have been doing this for generations. And yeah, the views were spectacular. You took a boat as far as you could, essentially, down the river, and then it was a case of walking, not a huge way, and it was all on paths, so it's not kind of an arduous walk, if that's a concern for you, but you walk into Fern Grotto itself, where it was stunning. We saw a lot of little lizards running around on various plants and things, and yeah, just the whole place. There was a lot of boats on the river as well. There was a lot of people in kayaks and paddle boards, which we were all waving as you went past, which was good fun. After we did the river tour, we got back in the car and we decided to drive around a few of the other viewpoints and lookout points on the island. And yeah, just we spent the whole day just driving around, taking photos and gasping at scenery, essentially. But yeah, it was absolutely stunning. And like hiring a car, I think, was the right call here, because if you'd have tried to do it via booked trips, you wouldn't have fitted anywhere near as much in. You wouldn't have got to the number of places that we got to kind of drive around to and take pictures of and see. So I'm glad we did that. This was also the first island where we got a view of the whales. Now, I mentioned that there was a lot of wildlife on this trip. This was the first place where we got a good view of the whales from the balcony. Pretty much the whole ship was outside on the balcony looking, watching them. I think everyone got at least a few photos here, but yeah, it was a really pretty sail away. So that was a lot of fun as well. And then it was kind of a case of waiting until the next day when we sailed into Maui. Now, we took the day a little bit easier in Maui. We didn't book any trips. We didn't kind of have any cars booked or anything like that. Now, I would say in general, Hawaii is not the place to go walking around. It is not built for pedestrians. However, we were pedestrians on Maui. We stopped by some shops, and then we went to the botanical gardens, which weren't very far. It was like kind of a 25-minute walk down from the ship. These weren't big, like flashy botanical gardens. They were there for conservation, and the lady as we came in was telling us this and explaining it. But I still think it was absolutely gorgeous, and they do really important work. So if you are visiting Maui and you have an hour or so with nothing to do, go visit the botanical gardens and give them some support for the work they do, because it is incredibly important work that they're doing, especially in light of some of the ecological problems that have been faced on the islands. They're doing really important conservation work. So go and visit the botanical gardens. It's good. Yeah, and then there was only one stop left in terms of where we were going in Hawaii, and that was to go to the Big Island. So Big Island was the day that we got to see a volcano erupting, which is very cool. We'd kind of been told on the way over that Mount Kilauea was erupting, and when we looked stuff up online, there were a lot of videos of a lot of lava going very high in the air. Now, when we got there, it was not going very high in the air. It was still erupting. There was a lot of smoke happening, but there wasn't big spurts of lava. But you could kind of see like a dim glow coming on the bottom of the smoke at times, but not much beyond that. But it was still brilliant. This was a trip that we booked through the cruise line itself, largely because it wasn't a particularly long port day, and we did not want to miss getting back. And if you book a tour through the cruise, they guarantee they get you back. So yeah, lots of smoke, lots of steam. And one of the things we did see was something called Pele's hair, which is basically strands of glass that rain from the sky when a volcano is erupting. So we did find quite a bit of that lying around and get to see that as well. Yeah, so Volcanoes National Park, absolutely stunning. We went for a walk around from where you can overlook Kilauea erupting. We went for a walk down by the sulfur pits, which was interesting. And then headed back to the visitors centre, where there is also a really good viewpoint. So if you can't kind of go walking around the park for any reason, any mobility issues, you can go to the visitor centre, and they have a huge kind of viewing window where you can watch from there as well. After we left the volcanoes, we did stop in at a macadamia factory where we spent far too much money on chocolate covered macadamias, but they had very pretty gardens as well, so I'm glad we stepped in, and the macadamias were very good. We also got another view of whales as we left. This is probably the best views we got of the humpback whales throughout this whole trip. Very excited about that. It was great. After leaving the Big Island, we had a few days at sea to enjoy the ship some more. before we were escorted into Mexico, into Ensenada, by a pod of dolphins, which was very cool. There was a lot of dolphins, a lot of people, again, out on the balconies taking pictures of them. We had, again, booked a trip through the cruise ship to go and see La Bufadora, which is a huge kind of natural blowhole, if you like. As you walk down to it, though, there is loads of like tourist and souvenir shops selling all manner of things. But the standout factor is, one, the churros, which were brilliant, and two, the fact that everybody, and I mean literally everybody, is trying to hand you tequila. Like just walking down the street, 24 people with little trays of shot glasses trying to feed you tequila. It was, yeah, it was it was a thing. But yeah, like La Bufadora was brilliant. The atmosphere was fantastic, and we got to do some good souvenir shopping while we were there. After that, it was simply a case of one more night on board and then heading home for a very, very long stint of jumping between planes and airports. So that was our trip. It was absolutely brilliant, and we've been back home a few weeks now, adjusting to married life, although it doesn't feel all that different. But yeah, thanks for watching if you're still here, and I will be back with probably more of my usual content, although we're not exactly a theme on the content on this channel anymore. But I will be back with more of the usual stuff rather than travel reviews. Although travel to little Scottish islands, there might be a bit of that coming up, but not the big international ones. I'll be back with more of those kind of videos soon, so I will see you then.